Hello, everyone. So, when I came into the room, Adi asked me if I had a text for today, and I told him that today this is my text. So, you may see behind me there's a garden, and being someone who gardens, I've been reflecting on Shemitah. And anyone who also gardens knows that when you garden, uh, you not only to cultivate the earth, you not only plant seeds, but you also pull weeds, right? So it's a process not only of nurturing what you want to grow, but also sometimes of pulling out that which you don't want to grow. And for Shemitah, we're asked to let go of both of those activities, both of the process of nurturing and planting, but also the process of weeding, pulling out. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about how oftentimes in our meditation, we may be nurturing, we may be bringing our attention to a particular point for perhaps our breath, perhaps some point in our body. And we also may be weeding. We may be purposely setting aside certain thoughts or certain demanding intrusions, right? So today I wanted to work a little bit with arising thoughts and feelings because I feel it reflects in many ways the practice of Shemitah, allowing what is there, what is growing or existing there, to exist, right? So to do this, I want to ask you first to find yourself a comfortable position. If you're seated, you want to be upright, but you also want to be relaxed. So allow your shoulders to drop, and your hands can be placed in your lap or on your knees. Your feet planted on the ground to provide you support. And just begin by stilling your body. Noticing the position of your body and allowing yourself this little window to adjust anything that needs to be adjusted. Now turning your attention to your breath. And just that natural movement of breath in your body. And you may wish to close your eyes or simply to allow your gaze to drop. So that your attention can be turned quietly inward. Anchoring your attention in your breath for the moment. Allowing yourself to focus just on what is here in this moment. Now you may notice that thoughts or feelings arise. Thoughts in your mind, feelings perhaps in your body. And as they arise, I want you to allow your attention to just rest with them for a moment. Allowing your attention to be with whatever is arising. Not needing to change it or pull it out. And not needing to nurture it either. Just allowing it to be. This thought is here. And then releasing it, like opening your hand, allowing it to pass, like a cloud in the sky. Or like a ripple in the water. And as it passes, you can allow yourself to turn again to the anchor of your breath. Resting here. With this breath that is present in your body. And however many times a thought or a sensation may arise, simply allow yourself to turn towards it, resting your attention there with curiosity and love. Saying simply, what is here? Just being present with that thought or sensation. Observing it as it blooms into existence and then fades. A bit like a flower or a plant. Coming into existence of its own accord and passing of its own accord. And as these thoughts and sensations arise, you may find that some of them are particularly attractive and enticing to you, sweet or fragrant in some way, and that you have that desire to cultivate them, to return to them again and again, or to elaborate on them, to grow them. Notice that impulse too. Turn to that impulse with the same sense and curiosity. Notice, here I want to hold on to this thought. Notice that, and again, release it. And in the same way, you may find that there are thoughts or sensations that arise that you are inclined to push away or to weed out, that you find intrusive or disturbing. Turn towards that impulse to push away, that impulse to weed out, with that same curiosity. Hello, impulse. I see you. I feel your texture. I'm present to you. Be present to that impulse and then allow it to pass. And so we will continue this way for a few more minutes, just allowing whatever thought or sensation arises to come into our awareness, to be present in our awareness, and then to pass. Adam Yesodo me alpha besofa le alpha besofa le alpha benafsha yavilachmol.
Thank you, Heather. John is going to blow the shofar for us, so I want to invite him in.
For those of you who were with us yesterday, I said one of the purposes I believe of sounding the shofar during this month is to prepare to hear the sound of the shofar during Rosh Hashanah. And so I'm going to invite you again to be part of this process. And just to prepare you, I invite you, and I'm sure you've already spent a number of moments, just to notice where you are right now. If you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. Just notice your thoughts, emotions, and sensations. And my intention when I sound the shofar today is for you to be present with me through each sound, to listen not as an observer, but as a participant. I asked you to see if you can notice the beginning with the inhalation, the sound, the end, the silence afterwards, and the new breath. And each small death of a sound is followed by a rebirth of the next one. And so I'm going to have a short pause between each of the sounds of the shofar, and then I'd ask for a number of a short time after I sounded the shofar for you to notice what arises.
Thank you, John. We're going to take a moment to recite Morna's Kaddish for those who are saying Kaddish, and if you want to include the name of the person that you are maybe saying Kaddish for, remembering today in the chat, please feel welcome to do so. And then join me, and then afterwards we'll have a chance to reflect a little bit on today's practice. Feel welcome to unmute yourself if you'd like to join. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shnei baba be'alma ra shirutei be'amrit malchutei
בחייכם ומלכם חיי תחם בית ישראל.
העגלה בזמן קריב,
אמן.
שמי רבה מברך, וערבי פרח ישתבח יפאר ורמם
מקדשה יחול לעילם כל ברכתה ושרתה תשבחתה
לעילה מנחה ושרתה משפחתה
במהרה בנשמה בחיים עלינו וכל ישראל ואילו
שלמה
אמן.
רבה מן שמיא
עושה שלום
בחיים
במקומה
עלינו
ועשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויראו יושבי תבל
ויעשה שלום
ויאמרו
עלינו
אמן.
כל יושבי תבל.
אמן.
All right. Thank you. Please stay with us if you'd like to share some reflections and questions about today's practice. And if you're not able to or don't want to stay with us, you're very welcome to join us again on Monday. We'll be back here again, same time and channel at 11:30 Central, where I am, 12:30 Eastern, or whatever time zone you're in, 12:30 Eastern time. We'll be back on Monday. And so if we don't see you, Shabbat Shalom. If not, if you're sticking with us, stick around for the next few minutes and we'll have a chance to talk some more. Heather, thank you so much for leading that practice today. And if you have a question or a comment, please feel welcome to put it in the chat for Heather. My own sensation or thought that came up was just doing this on Friday, right, as its own form of sort of Shabbat preparation, and that Shemitah is a Shabbat la'aretz. It's a 7-year, it is meant to be Shabbat for the planet, and I wonder how, if you just want to comment or reflect on, as part of your own sort of Shabbat practice or your Shabbat preparation, how the noticing and releasing for you, how is that part of, if at all, is that part of the way you approach Shabbat?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's interesting. I think a while back I brought a text from the Shemi Shmuel, and he associates Shabbat with the quality of equanimity, right? The sort of that ability to be present, right, with whatever is. And that's, at least that's what I understand him to be saying when he says that Shabbat is associated with the quality of equanimity. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think even just being able to notice, there was a question Harris shared, I noticed that some thoughts that were work-related emerged with some unpleasantness as a weed, and then became more pleasant as my mind worked through it and began to flower. Indeed, in my garden, I allow some weeds to go to flower, and they are beautiful. And it's interesting that Harris, when you're saying the work-related pieces, right? We also sometimes might, with Shabbat, want to resist them also, and like say, well, I don't want that in my mind right now, but also maybe allowing them, the resistance itself might be the issue, right? And just open their way, right?
Yes, absolutely. The resistance itself becomes as much the struggle as the whatever it is we're struggling with, right? I think this is very much also related to our experience physically. So we can experience it physically in the sense of, if you have a pain, let's say you have a pain in your shoulder, right? And we all do this, where we have a pain in our shoulder, maybe from, using the computer or mousing or what have you. And we start to get sort of preoccupied with that and start to gather tension around that. And then it builds. So the small pain grows and grows. And the more that we can sort of accept that's there, right? So I'm sure anyone who practices yoga knows that when you start a pose, frequently there'll be a kind of discomfort in that pose. And the more that you can breathe into that discomfort and just be with what's there in your body, and the less that your body resists, the more you become comfortable with what is there, right?
Mm, yeah. And so I wonder, when you take that into Shemitah, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does the question of resistance, I wonder how that plays for us. I mean, in that, on the one hand, we certainly want to become aware of things that we want to change, and we do want to resist in terms of larger systems. I think Shemitah as being this larger opportunity for meta reflection or systems level thinking, in a way that Shabbat is a smaller, it's a smaller and ongoing. It's like this larger. I wonder what.
Yeah, and actually, I think it's. I'm going to turn away from the metaphor of the garden for a second and talk a little bit about my experience as a singer, right? So, as a singer, one of the very hardest things to do is to listen to a recording of your own voice. It's very, very challenging. On the other hand, it's actually one of the most instructive and best ways to learn. When I can get myself to sit through a recording of my voice lesson, for instance, it's like, it's the value of that is like 10 voice lessons. But it means it means being able to let go of that initial impulse to push it away and shut off my ears and want to say, oh, shut that off. And I can tell you that this is true even for people who are fantastic musicians. I've been with some wonderful musicians in situations where inadvertently some of their music was playing in a social situation, and they were like, please, please, make that stop. And so I think all of us have that experience where we want to turn away, right? And being able to sit with the thing is what allows us to really observe it. In going back to the gardening metaphor, I happen to have inherited a beautiful garden. When we bought our house, we bought it from a woman who was a really dedicated gardener. And I quickly realized that when the next spring came, that if I weeded out everything I thought was a weed, I was going to be pulling out all the wonderful and unusual plants that she had planted in this garden, because she had planted things that were uncommon and interesting and that I didn't recognize as having the value that they did, right? And by the same token, I needed to nurture. There was a point when I realized that I had let things overgrow, right, and that I needed to do some intervening too. But I think part of what comes with Shemitah is that allowing ourselves to just observe what's there, and to be what's there with what's there. I was really tempted today, and I didn't want to overload our meditation, but I was very tempted to also work a little bit with tshuva, because oftentimes one of the hardest things about tshuva is that we have a tendency, when we look at the things we would like to change, you can call them our faults, our flaws, what have you, our foibles, that when we look at them, our tendency is either to want to go to a place of shame, like, oh my God, I cannot believe how stupid I am, which doesn't help us, because it doesn't really give us room to look calmly at what it is, right? We tend to have that sort of panicked shame reaction or justification, right? Oh, well, yes, I do these things, but it's because my mother taught me this, or because of my husband, or because of my work, or because of whatever it is, right? So to sit with it allows us to really observe it.
Mm.
And it allows us also to observe it as it arises. And it's that allows us to change.
Mm.
God willing,
Mm.
right? God willing.
And I think that works really nicely with Jonathan's shofar blowing and the invitation just, to actually notice and be a participant in the shofar blowing, when I think, for many of us, it can turn into, oh, somebody's blowing the shofar. I know that someone's blowing the shofar, but I'm not necessarily having the experience of the shofar being blown and hearing it, right? Lishmoa kol shofar, to really hear the voice of the shofar. That can be like becoming aware of what's actually happening, right, and allowing it to penetrate.
Yeah.
Well,
There's really some lovely comments, and so I would love to turn to some of these comments. I see Harris said this thing about sometimes, and someone else alluded to this. Sometimes there's something that we experience as a weed, right? And that it can bloom, right? And I think that's true also sometimes even with our feelings. Sometimes we can have a feeling that has a negative association. But if we can turn to it, we may see that it has something to tell us, right? A lot of us live, for instance, with unprocessed, anger or stress, that it's actually trying to tell us something. And turning to it can allow us to really see that. There was somebody else said something, had another comment or question. Cultivating neutrality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of comments about the question of weeds, right? And it's interesting also, and maybe this is a place we'll finish, is just that when we think about Shabbat practice and about spending a year in that sort of Shabbat mindset, that one of the things that we don't do on Shabbat traditionally is like classify things, right? It is to sort things into different categories, et cetera, and to label them. When you go back and you read the first chapter of Genesis, how much time God spends looking and seeing and labeling, calling things, and then on Vayom Hashvi Shabbat Vayinafash, but on the seventh day, right, that we just are able to sit and be reconnected with the soul. And Harris just offered one last thing. Harris, I think we should just bring you on here. From Mark Nepo, to listen is to continually give up all expectation and to give our attention completely and freshly to what is before us, not really knowing what we will hear or what that will mean. In the practice of our days, to listen, I would say to listen to the shofar right now, is to lean in softly with a willingness to be changed by what we hear. So it's a wonderful way to close. Thank you so much, Heather, for today. Thank you, Jonathan, for your shofar blowing. Thanks everybody for joining us today. And we will be back with you on Monday. And in the meantime, wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.